Good morning. So the great hymnal number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me, or with him in this case. And stand if you're willing and able. Okay, have a seat. Nice opening. I'm Ken Willingham. I am your worship leader this morning. So ours is a welcoming community where we find connection and meaning, a sharing community where our joys are amplified, a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. We also welcome guests from Facebook Live and our Zoom audience. Is anyone out there? No. Okay. We welcome everyone regardless of race, creed, color, social level, economic status, gender identity, or whom you love. I'll wait a moment. In good hands now. All are welcome here. I don't know if I did the previous line or not. I'll hear it again. We welcome everyone regardless of race, creed, color, social level, economic status, gender identity, whom you love or whom you're upset at. Doesn't matter. All are welcome here. Do we have any visitors this morning? Okay, let that one pass. Clearly there are no online visitors. Do we have any church announcements? We do, yay.
I don't know if this pertains directly to, and well, it may. I have been asked about another new members class. People are starting to ask about it. So I do have a sign-up sheet out there. If you know of anyone that you think might be interested, Please have them sign the sheet. When we get, about 5 people together, we will have a class, and we've already got a couple of names on the list. So if you have friends or neighbors you want to bring in and say, hey, you might like it, let's think about this. Or if there's people that you know that come but haven't yet joined, think about it and encourage them to sign the list. Thank you.
Yeah, Cheryl, when you announced that, I saw some heads nodding, so it was a good thing. Heads nodding, yes. That's a good thing. Okay, with that, each week we spend a few minutes stepping across the aisle and greet and welcome each other this fine day, and I will hit the gong when it's time to return to your seat. Go for it. Oh, yeah, good. I'll be good. I'll be having fun. Good to see you. Definitely God's eagerness up there. So now it's time to light the chalice. May I have a volunteer, please, to light the chalice. Go for it. Love is the aspiration, the spirit that moves and inspires this faith we share. Rightly understood, love can nurture our spirits and transform the world. May the flame of this chalice honor and embody the power and the blessing of the love we need, the love we give, the love we are challenged always to remember and to share. Thank you. Now it's time for our offering. Now I need 2 volunteers to pass the plates. This congregation is a theologically diverse religious community with membership open to all who are in accordance with our principles, mission, and vision. We are a welcoming congregation to people of all sexual orientations. We unconditionally welcome any and all of you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral beings. Our congregation is entirely self-governed by democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and our institutional well-being. Thank you. Now we have a story for all ages. And Mark is doing that.
Actually, I asked Amanda if she would do it. She was kind of.
Oh, she is.
Yes.
Children, come forth. Young, old, doesn't matter how old you are, if you feel kiddish, come on up.
This is called, yeah, you can go up a little bit, it'll be okay. Okay. The Runaway Walk, excuse me. It's a big cooking pan from China by Ying Cheng Compostine and Sebastia Serra. The Runaway Walk. One Chinese New Year's Eve, a poor couple sent their son Ming to the market. "Trade these last few eggs for a bag of rice," said Mama Zhang. "Then we can make some stir-fried rice to share with the neighbors." "It won't be much of a celebration again this year," Papa Zhang said with a sigh. "You'd think that by working for Mr. Li, the richest man in Beijing, we would have enough to invite everyone over for a New Year's feast." Ming hurried off, eager to do his mother's bidding. It saddened him to see his hardworking parents being cheated by the greedy Mr. Li. As he walked, he daydreamed about what a real feast would be like and how nice it would be to have just one new toy to share with his friends. A small old man stopped Ming near the market. "Hello, son, I see you have some eggs there. I will trade you this wok for them." "No," said Ming, "I need rice. Besides, your wok is rusted and has no handle." Just then the wok sang out, "Whoa, trade for me! I am more than what you see." Ming had never heard a wok sing. He thought, "This wok is magic. If it can sing, it must be able to do other amazing things." So he made the trade. The old man sauntered off, chuckling happily to himself. Ming's mother wasn't happy. "Why did you trade this battered old wok for this battered old wok? What are we going to cook in it?" Before Ming could answer, the wok sang out, "Mother, make me shine so bright, and you shall have food to share tonight." "See, Mama," said Ming, "it's a special wok." "Let's do what it says Papa Zhang. We're all hungry." So Mama Zhang washed and polished the wok until it sparkled. Then she set it on the table. To their surprise, it rolled off the table and ran out the door. "Where are you going?" cried Mama Zhang. "Skippity-hoppity-ho, to the rich man's wife I go," sang the wok, and it briskly hopped down the road. The wok skipped all the way to the Li kitchen. Mrs. Li was overseeing the servants prepare the New Year's feast for her family. The Lees never shared their food with anyone. The wok plopped down on the counter. "Where did this come from?" asked Mrs. Li. No one knew. "Well, put it to good use," she ordered. "It will make a nice serving bowl." So the servants put in the wok festive stir-fried rice, pork dumplings, kung pao chicken, steamed buns, and walnut shrimp. There was still room for more. They added lifelong noodles, ginger fish, and rice cakes. Yet still there was room for more. "Keep filling it," commanded Miss Lee. "I must go change for the party." All over the place. No sooner had the servant set the last bit of food in the wok than it jumped out the window. "Skippity-hoppity-ho, to the poor man's house I go," sang the wok as it trotted down the road, brimming with delicious food. The Zhang family could hardly believe their eyes. They gleefully removed the food and set up a big feast. As soon as it was empty, the wok rolled out to their courtyard. "Where are you going?" cried Ming. Skippity hoppity ho, to the rich man's son I go, sang the walk as it galloped away. The walk caught up with the rich man's son, Lan, at the market, who, though he had many toys, he never shared them with other children. The walk blocked the road in front of him. "What's this?" wondered Lan. "I could use it to hold all my goodies." And without bothering to find the owner, the chubby boy grabbed the walk. Lan bought fireworks, toy dragons, cymbals, and drums. He piled them into the walk, and there was still room for more. So he bought lanterns, yo-yos, and kites. Finally, his weak arms grew tired, and he headed home. When Lan arrived home, he put down the walk and went to find his mother. No sooner had he turned his back than the walk hopped away. Skippity-hoppity-hoo, to the poor man's house I go. It pranced all the way back to the Zhang's house with all the goodies saved inside. Ming bounced with joy as he emptied the walk. "There are enough toys here for all my friends," he exclaimed. The walk rolled over to the door and out of their courtyard once again. "Where are you going?" called Mr. Zhang. "Skippity-hoppity-ho, to the rich man's house I go," sang the walk as it spun down the road. The walk arrived at Mr. Li's shop just as he was counting the money he had cheated out of the poor people of Beijing. It leaped through the window and landed on the counter in front of him. "Well, here's a nice pot to hold my money." Mr. Li put handful after handful of gold coins into the walk, and there was still room for more. He dragged out a bag from under his counter and dumped all those coins into it too. No sooner had Mr. Li emptied his last coins into the walk than it jumped out the window. "Skippity-hoppity-hoo, to the poor man's house I go." It scooted down the road all the way back to the Zhang's house with all the money safe inside. Ming and his parents danced with delight. They invited all the poor people in Beijing to their New Year's feast. Mother Zhang served the food, Father Zhang divided the coins up among the families, and Ming handed out the toys to all the children. In the middle of the party, without anyone noticing, the walk slid out the door. "Skippity-hoppity-hoo, to the rich man's house I go." It hopped to the Li house, where the father and mother and their spoiled son were weeping and wailing and blaming each other for their misfortune. When they saw the walk, they jumped up. "There's the walk that took all our food," cried Miss Li. "And my toys," whined the boy. "I'll break it for stealing our gold," vowed Mr. Li. The walk sang out, "I dare you three to try and catch me." The Li family chased after the walk. Chubby Lan couldn't make it very far without losing his breath, and Mrs. Li had trouble running in her fancy shoes. But Mr. Li finally caught up with it. To stop the walk, he jumped inside, pressing it to the ground. "Now I've got you," he growled. "Wait for me," called Mrs. Li. "I will teach that walk a lesson." Mr. Li tried to get up, but found that he was stuck tight. When Mrs. Li grabbed his legs to pull him out, she slipped into the walk too. Chubby Lan finally arrived out of breath. "Help, help, pull us out," cried his parents. Lan grabbed their legs but lost his balance and fell inside with them. "Skippity-hoppity-hoo, to far away I will go," sang the walk as it tumbled down the road with the Li family inside, legs waving in the air. Dragon dancers' drums boomed, cymbals crashed, and fireworks banged, drowning out the Li family's cries. No one noticed as the walk sped off to the distant hills. The Li family was never seen again in Beijing. As for the Zhang family, they opened a shop selling walks of all different sizes and styles. Every year, they hosted a glorious New Year's feast for all their friends and family. And to think that it all started with a rusted walk with no handle.
So I picked that one, I'll take total blame for it, just saying. And in the mountains, they learn to do shepherd stuff, and they learn to be more loving and giving. All right, had a good ending there.
Now opening words. Mark, you have those.
This is the pros and cons of being a third culture kid by Piper Kim. If you don't know what a third culture kid is, just hang on. This is written by Piper Kim. Similar to my tongue-in-cheek anecdotal definition, the textbook term of a third culture kid is persons raised in a culture other than their parents or the culture of their country named on their passport for a significant part of their early developmental years. Like others who fit this description, I was the ball in my parents' game of intercontinental tennis. After I was born in Seoul, my family moved back and forth with them between Singapore and Korea until we settled in Saudi Arabia for my high school years. Upon graduation, I moved to sunny California for college, living in Los Angeles during the school year and bouncing between Korea, Saudi Arabia, and wherever TripAdvisor gave my parents ticket discounts. People often ask me what it was like growing up at TCK, and to this day, I have yet to find a perfect answer. Despite this being the only life I've known, I'm still perplexed as to how I feel about my globetrotter life, to the point where it makes me cross-eyed from the effort. But as with everything, every coin has two sides, the good and the bad. There are three pros of being a TCK. Number one, seeing and appreciating the beautiful world. Moving around the world regularly entailed that I got to see and live in the phenomenal accomplishments of mankind and nature, being able not only to see, but also to live in the desert, the tropics, high-tech cities, and La La Land was eye-opening and an experience I'll never forget. Doing a 360 around the world in my 20 years of life was a remarkable adventure that I will forever cherish and be grateful for. During this time, I learned to appreciate love, and understand the different beauties of nature, architecture, and people that each country had to offer. Number two, meeting a lot of unique and diverse people. As I changed countries every 3 or 4 years and schools every 2-ish years, I was able to meet hundreds of unique and talented people. Having the opportunity to connect with more diverse people helped me to learn about the different types of people, different languages, different cultures. I was able to learn something valuable from each person that I met, whether it was something as small as how to cook hot pot to something as big as what it's like to be a Muslim in the 21st century. Number three, becoming an open-minded and culturally aware person. My TCK journey had led me to live in a life of consistent cultural experience, as I was the new foreign exchange student every 3 years. Every 3 years, I learned new languages, cultures, and traditions of my new host country. The consistent cycle of being culture shocked and culturally accepted has molded me into becoming more open-minded and accepting of differences. Despite these amazing pros of being a TCK, there are quite a few cons. Here's three. Number one, never feeling completely accepted anywhere. I'm never able to feel entirely in place or belong anywhere. When in Korea, I'm too whitewashed. In America, I'm too Korean. Singapore, I'm too foreign. In Saudi Arabia, I'm too liberal. Because of my scattered upbringing, I've never been able to homogenize to any culture or language, and consequently never felt at home in any country or community. The fact that I've never had a community that I can fall back on or belong entirely is sometimes tough for me to accept. Number two, not having many long-term relationships, feeling alone on the planet. Although I've made a lot of acquaintances, I've realized that I have very few long-lasting relationships. Relocating countries every 3 or 4 years led me to be distant from extended family, as I didn't have many opportunities to spend time with them. Also, after moving to college in a different continent, I'm not as close to my parents as I used to be because, again, distance. Also, I found it challenging to maintain long-lasting friendships. All of this moving resulted in me transferring schools 10 times in my 12 years of schooling. Not attending one school consistently or living in one country meant that I lost on the opportunity to create long-term friendships that exceeded 3 or 4 years. Number three, not having a place to call home. When people ask me where I consider my home, I don't have an answer. I feel as though a home should be a place or a community where a person completely understands the culture, language, and people. Unfortunately, this safe space does not exist in my life. The sad fact is, I don't have a home. I've lived 20 years out of my suitcase. Although I can adapt quickly and live anywhere, even in a desert, without much discomfort, I can never expel the slight tinge of unfamiliarity that I see in every place, person, and culture that makes me know that I'm an outsider. Throughout this confusion, one fact I know for sure is that I'm so utterly grateful for what I've been able to experience, because I do realize that it is a privilege. Being able to not just to visit, but live in the deserts of Arabia, the land of crazy rich Asians, the country of Kdramas, and the city of angels, has been a phenomenal experience for which I am so grateful for. I am ready and looking forward to the next step in my long journey.
Thank you. So I brought some things for me, but I'll talk about that in Joys and Sorrows time. So, and it is Joys and Sorrow time. So we take a few moments each week to reflect on our, feel how large you can be. It could take a little bit of effort to bring down the walls that we put up around ourselves. So just let them go. Feel the others in the room. Just hold whatever thought or pattern you're in for the next moment or so. And when you come out, we'll sing number 123, Spirit of Life.
Morning. think I shared before, people found out that I lived in China for 8 years, and they were saying, well, I'd love to talk about it. I like to hear your stories. I like to hear you talk about it. So I thought, why not? Just for fun. It was just a real interesting trip. Actually, we didn't go to China first. The organization I was with advised us to go to Singapore. Well, that's where the organization base was. And so we spent 6 months in Singapore. For one reason, it's a good stepping stone to China, because I'm not sure she had Molly, did you have the PowerPoint? I had a few pictures. It's not a big deal. Anyway.
I'll go ahead and share them. I didn't know you wanted me to now, so go ahead and share them.
I didn't know either, yeah. I'm always in the valley of decision. I can never make a decision without standing stupid for a while. Yeah, if you can, that's downtown Singapore. It's gorgeous. It's very high tech. I believe it was a British colony first, and then the Japanese took it over during World War II, and then eventually they became their own country, it's an island, it's like an island state, their own country, and it's mostly Chinese, but there's people from India there, there's people from Indonesia there, people from Britain, America. English is the main business language there, so it was easy to get around, and it was a good stepping stone to China because it was kind of half and half. It was kind of a lot of Chinese, but most spoke English, so that was kind of helpful because, of course, I didn't speak Chinese yet. And so it was really cool. It's actually the southernmost part of Southeast Asia. It's only like 80 miles from the equator. So what does that mean? Hot all year round. And I bought me some silk shirts and thought that would make me cooler. And I found out I'll never be cool. But no, but the transportation system, you didn't have to own a vehicle because the L trains were like top notch. And I mean, a lot of people say, oh, America's the highest tech, it's the best country in the world, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you need to get out of America and check out other countries out, because some countries are killing it as far as economy and being nice to nature and things like that. But anyway, Singapore was really cool. It did take some getting used to. What my boss, he said, okay, you got to try this fruit called durian. I'm like, oh, what is that? He goes, well, it's kind of acquired taste. I like it, but you got to try it. So they had these bread puff balls with durian in it. And I took one bite. I ran right to the bathroom, brushed my teeth about 10 times. And Jamie's like, how would you describe it? I'm like, well, do you know what rotted onions and a dirty diaper smells like? You put that together, and that's kind of what it tastes like. It was probably the nastiest thing. People love it. I mean, who thought, this fruit stinks, let's try it, you know? I don't know. But what's interesting about, I told you about the L trains. Well, they got some circle slash symbols there. One is no drinks, no food, no durian. Because you cannot carry durian on the subway. I call it a subway, it's actually an L train, but it would stink up the whole cab. Bad. But what's funny is the Chinese look at dessert different than we do. There is durian ice cream. There is green bean ice cream. There is taro ice cream and corn ice cream. And all these different things. I'm like, where's the chocolate? You know, but it was very interesting. We only spent 6 months there, but I'm glad we did. Everything we did, I'm glad we did it. I mean, I know my belief system is totally different than it used to be, but like my wife says, no regrets. I'm glad we got out of America and got into another culture. If you think of any culture that's more opposite than America, China's pretty close. I mean, not as much as it used to be, because they're trying to get westernized, for good or for bad. So the next place we went is a city called Guilin. Guilin, China is right there. You can see it on the map. And it's not as bad as Singapore, It's kind of rains a lot, but if you ever seen pictures, anybody seen old Chinese paintings with these weird hill, like haystack shaped mountains, or these beautiful, okay, show the next one if you can. All right, that's near Guilin, okay, and I lived there, and it was gorgeous. And these are limestone mountains, so you can climb them, but they're razor sharp. You got to be careful. But beautiful shang shui, beautiful view. And we got to travel to different villages of minority groups. A lot of people don't know that China probably has more minority groups than almost any other country. I mean, you would know they're minority groups because they all, to me, look Chinese, but there's the different languages, different food, different culture. We go to these villages and they don't even speak Chinese, a lot of them don't. And, oh, by the way, the official language of China, as you know, is Mandarin, right? So how you say hi in Mandarin is ni hao, but how you say it in Hong Kong, where they speak Cantonese, is ne ho. So it's similar. Actually, the writing was identical, but they speak it differently. They pronounce the words differently. And one of the villages we went to is called the Dongzu, the Dong people. Beautiful. They're a little small, a little shorter. It's like one of those little teddy bears in Star Wars. Ewoks. They make me think of Ewoks. They were just cute, and they're like village. I love being in the village. But one time I was in the village, and I had to go number 2. And I said, "Where's the bathroom?" And they pointed to the mountain. I'm like, "Oh." So you have to get creative with some things. But we've been to different villages, and they all like surrounded with those kind of mountains, and it was really cool. And one plant they grow there is, I think we call them palmettos. It's not a very common fruit, but if you, it's sort of like a grapefruit, only not as strong. And they're shaped sort of like a pear, but they're about that tall. They're bright yellow and about that big around. During palmetto season, there are pole barns that are up to the roof and flowing out. It's like, I don't know where they grow. I've never seen a palmetto tree, but there was a crap load of them. And they taste okay. I don't like grapefruit, but it's not strong like a grapefruit, but it tastes pretty good. So I'm going to skip around a lot. But I also liked lychees. You guys ever have lychees? It's sort of like a grape. It's kind of rough on the. It looks like almost like alligator skin on the outside. It's in the inside. It's like a white grape, and they're absolutely delicious. One thing my wife and I love to do at night is what's called xiao kao, and xiao kao translated roughly is barbecue. At night, these people go out on the street and they'd all line up their grills, and they'd just be cooking this stuff on help me out here, food on a stick. Shish kebabs, thank you. Sorry, my brain's sometimes not working. Shish kebabs, but it was like meat or fried vegetables. We like this one thing, it was eggplant. I don't like eggplant, but the way they cooked it, they cut it in half and put all the spicy stuff on it, and you just eat it just like that. Wow, I shouldn't talk like this right before lunch, but it was really, really good. But one food that a lot of Guilin people, afraid to say, is dog meat. There's a certain breed of dog that they have. They don't eat any kind of dog. There's a certain breed, kind of makes me think of a dingo from Australia, only a little smaller, they're brown. And one time we decided to get a dog. And so my wife went to the market to get a dog. And we bought one of those dogs that are meant for dog meat. And the Chinese were looking at us like, "You're gonna use this as a pet? This ain't a pet dog, this is food dog." So we considered it a rescue animal kind of thing. And so we took it home with us, but unlike other ones, they had really short legs. So one of my friends called him Lord Farquaad from Shrek, which is kind of funny. But we were trying to come up with a name, and what the Chinese do when they see a kid they don't know their name, they'll call them Xiao Pengyo, which means little friend. Hey, little friend. So we decided to call our dog Xiao Pengyo. little friend. And so that was cute, you know. But I had one guy come to the door and he's looking at it like, that's not a regular dog. That's the dog meat, Chinese for dog meat is goro. He says, that's not a Xiaopengyo dog. That's more like a dog meat dog. And, well, he didn't know. He said, what's his name? And I said, goro, dog meat. And he just busted out laughing. He thought that was hilarious. You name your, anyway, maybe you had to be there, but it was funny at the time. Okay, we have 3 kids. They're now adults. When we first flew over to Singapore, Aaron was, I think, 14. Elise was 12, which would make Seth 8. So 2 daughters, the 2 girls just becoming teenagers, and our son still, 8-year-old. And we were there approximately 10 years, but once one grew up, they went back to the States. And each one's a very different personality. You know, you have our kids and each one's different from each other, like way different from each other. And they all reacted differently to China. Our oldest, I think she did the best as far as, well, she was 14, she was able to, she learned some Chinese, she learned to shop, things like that. Our second daughter we didn't even know this, but she was being picked on by the other foreign kids and from the same organization. I mean, nasty picked on. And she got into this, I call it the goth phase, where she was wearing black all the time with the black makeup. And usually I don't have a problem with that, but I didn't know it was due to her depression that she was going through. So after we started seeing these changes, we thought we should move to a different city because these kids here are just not good these are supposed missionary kids being mean to the other kids. And so we decided we should move to Kunming. Now, our organization's like, we don't want you to move to Kunming. We've already got people in Kunming. There's plenty of foreigners in Kunming. And we're like, that's kind of why we want to move over there. For our children's sake, we need to move. So whether they liked it or not, we moved to a different city. And so we moved to the next city. I'm just going through my notes. I jotted down a lot of stuff, so I don't want to miss anything. Okay, what I did for the first 4 years is language study, and I was in no way fluent in Chinese. Now, if you hear me speak Chinese, most Chinese people will say, oh, you speak good Chinese, and they'll start talking back at me like really fast, and I won't understand a word they're saying. I could speak it better than I could hear it. So one time I was ordering bread. My wife likes to brag about this, but I'll brag about me because Jamie's not here. So in her place, I'm going to brag a bit. But one time I said I just wanted some bread or something like that. And the guy turned to me and says, are you Chinese? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm Chinese. But what's funny is sometimes they see a white face and I'll be speaking Chinese to this guy and he goes, I don't speak English. Or no, he said, I don't understand. And I said, you don't understand Chinese? And the other guy standing next to him just busted out laughing. Because sometimes, I don't know what it is, but when a Chinese sees a white face, they automatically think you can't speak Chinese. So there's a mental block there. You're not speaking Chinese because you can't. No white-faced person can. There was another mental block with the Chinese is they think all Americans are rich. And it's a hard mentality to break, really. There was times I couldn't make rent. I had to pick up more students teaching English and teaching music and things like that. And one time I said, well, I'll give you half my rent now and give me a few weeks, I'll give you the next. I mean, she didn't understand it, because all Americans are rich, right? So that was interesting. Plus the exchange rate changed. When we first moved to China, $1 US equaled 8 kwai, okay, $100. So it's good. We were making, you can live on that easily. So, but by the time we left China, $1 was like $3.46. So it's a huge difference. So we not only started losing, you guys remember 2008, the recession, I guess they call it, that happened while we were over there, and we started losing a lot of support. And so I had to pick up jobs. And so it was not only less income, but the exchange rate also changed. So eventually we had to move back to the States. What's interesting, the move from Guilin to Kunming was a big difference. Guilin's population is only 1.1 million, which is a small city for China, okay? Not very big at all. Now Kunming is 6.6 million. There's Kunming, and if you see Kunming, this is Tibet. Kunming is a lot closer to Tibet. They also have a lot of minority groups. Everybody eats Sichuan food? Anybody like Sichuan food? It's known for what? Being spicy, all right? This is Sichuan. And it's a bowl. As all these rivers go into the capital. And what's cool about my kids, they got to the point, my two daughters, their Chinese was good enough that they could take teams into villages without us. They could travel. Sometimes we had to divide and conquer. We'd have 2 or 3 teams coming over. These short-term, what they call short-term missionaries, they'd come over, maybe 6 of them, 7 of them, and sometimes they'd all come at the same time. So we had to like split up. I'd take a group, my wife would take a group, my kids would take a group, or take them shopping. And my second daughter was really good at bargaining, because in China, a lot of times there's not a set price. You talk about it, she was really good at talking prices down. But as I said, Kunming is near Tibet, and because Tibet is mostly Buddhist, a lot of Christians want to go there to evangelize or stuff like that. So there was a lot of organizations that moved to Kunming because foreigners aren't allowed to live in Tibet. If you know any of Tibet's history, Tibet was basically its own country, and then China basically took it over against their will. And so Tibet, although they call it an autonomous region, which means they have some freedoms, China is communist, so they don't like any kind of religion at all. It's supposed to be an atheist society, but they, you're Buddhist monks, you're fervent for that, we're not going to persecute you much for that. And some people would ask us, well, if you're over there being a missionary, what if they catch you? Will they kill you? And I said, well, I used to smuggle Bibles into China, and I said, every time you get caught, you lose a finger, so I'm doing all right. Of course, I was just kidding. But I said, no, they won't do anything to foreigners. But if you're Chinese and you're doing this, you will get in trouble. You will be thrown in jail. But foreigners, they try to keep a good relationship with America. How many have things in their house that say made in China? Everybody, okay. How many have Christmas lights? They say that a lot of those are made by prisoners in China. Just letting you know. Anyway, as I had said, my second daughter did not do well in Guilin. That's why we moved to Kunming. She totally did a 180. She found friends that would not pick on her. And one of the cool things about Kunming is there are people from every continent that live in that city. We met people from Australia, people from Colombia, people from Germany, people from Korea, you name it, just about every country, not every country, but like I said, every continent except maybe Antarctica was represented in that city. So it was a cool, really cool cross-cultural thing that was happening in China. Like I said, Singapore, there was all these different, there were Chinese, people from India, people from Indonesia, people from Britain, which all means what? Great restaurants, right? They had some great restaurants. And these minority groups had some great restaurants. The Uyghur is a minority group you might have heard of. You've heard of Kazakhstan. There's some Kazakhstan people that live in China that have their own restaurants. And we've gone to that restaurant a couple times, and they're fun people. They'll bust out their instruments and get on stage and be singing whatever, and you can join them. And it's just, oh my God, it was just so much fun. Just having this international feeling was really cool. I can't remember who said it. It might have been, was it Mark Twain? He said, correct me, please correct me if you guys know. If you have a problem with racism, you need to move to a different country or visit other countries. Anybody remember anybody saying that? Cool quote, look it up, let me know later. So as far as culture shock, I felt called to China when I was in school, when I was 20 years old. And I didn't get to go until I was 40. So that's like a 20-year span of wanting to go, but not having the money to go. And so people that were worried about culture shock, I didn't have any because I was already visiting Chinese restaurants, visiting Chinese people, learning, you know, I wasn't fluent in any way, but I was just really into it. But some people do deal with culture shock. Who's been outside the country? Wow, kudos to you guys. Any culture shock? Yeah. What's weird, one anti-racism thing that happens to you is you become the minority and people look at you. And I tell you what, if there's one word I got tired of, it was the word hello, because that's about the only word they knew, most of them, unless they're English students. And I would walk down the street, hello, hello, hello. It got to the point I wanted to slap everybody that said hello, you know, but so they'd say hello, I'd say ni hao. But, sorry, I shouldn't have done that. That's how I felt in my heart, okay? But, or they give you a slur. What's the slur? Means old foreigner. It's escaping me right now. I guess I'm a little nervous. Lao Wai. Hey, Lao Wai. You know, this means, hey, old foreigner. Or Gao Bidzi. Gao Bidzi means tall nose. So if they would look at me and say, hey, Gao Bidzi, I say, hey, Xiao Bidzi, which means, hey, small nose. You know? Sorry, I guess maybe that was a kind of a culture shock. I don't know. It was just the repetition of, they were racist slurs, or the word hello, you know, it just got to me after a while. But there were definitely more advantages than disadvantages. I'm not down on China. I had a great time there. I didn't, no regrets at all. You know, there's a Walmart in Kunming, but if you walk in there, you would know it's Walmart. I mean, it's built like a Walmart. The walls look like a Walmart. You see Walmart on the walls, but you look at what they sell and the food and stuff, and it's all Chinese food and Chinese. The air conditioners there are not like, I guess I think they're starting to sell them now. You see the air conditioners like mounted on the wall and the units like outside. They put a hole, there's a hose. Anybody seen those before? I think they're just starting to sell those now. Or the hot water where they don't have a water tank. They have something on the wall that's gas, and it heats the pipes as the water runs through. So it only heats up the water as it's running. It's very economical. Instant hot. They sell that now too. First time I saw it was in Hong Kong. But really smart people. And sometimes coming back to America, you have what's called reverse culture shock. We're in China for so long, we come back, and we had to use, one funny story is, Jamie's driving down the road, and she sees this, two people coming out of a building, and they're wearing this, it's like a copper, brown, orange kind of full-length thing, and she thinks, oh, they're Buddhist monks, because that's what they wore in China. She turns, and it's two guys in their Carhartt overalls. You know, it just happened to be the same color, but it's just kind of weird. The restaurants, anybody go to Chinese restaurants? They're not really Chinese restaurants. Okay, you eat China food in China, it's a lot different than the Chinese restaurants here, unless there are a few. Jimmy James is pretty close. The closest I've come in town is, I think they call it Mama's Kitchen. Anybody ever been to the International Market? It's out there by it's on Green River in Morgan, near there. All right. My wife loves visiting that place because even you smell China. As soon as you walk in, you smell the food, you smell they sell stuff. They call it international market because they sell stuff from India, stuff from Indonesia, stuff from, Korean food, Mexican food, Chinese food. But there's this little hole in the wall room next to it, little tables, and they have the woks there, and the food they cook there is, I'm telling you, the real stuff. So if you want real Chinese food, I like the number one on the menu is beef noodle bowl. Oh, God. Really good stuff. Another funny, weird thing that happens when you move back is you start using Chinese words and you don't realize. You're talking to someone, like my wife will cook for somebody, and she says, is that too la? And I look at her and I said, do you understand what you just said, is that too la? La means spicy hot. Is that too spicy hot? La bula, bu meaning no. Hot, no hot. You'd say la bula, is it hot or is it not hot? And she would say stuff like, another funny one is chabadul. Chabadul means kind of, sort of, not exactly. Or you can say it's around, like it's around $5. How much is it? $5, chabadul. And I hear my wife say, oh, it's $5, chabadul. I'm like, you just spoke Chinese again. She goes, she doesn't even think of it. Another one is mama hoo-hoo. Everybody say that, mama hoo-hoo. Mama hoo-hoo means so-so. And what's funny is ma is horse, hoo is tiger. So when you say mama hoo-hoo, you're saying horse, tiger, tiger. And I asked the guy, I said, where did mama hoo-hoo come from? And he's like, nobody knows. We just say it, so-so. It's mama hoo-hoo. It's horse, tiger, tiger. I'm like, that makes no sense, but okay. It's got to go with the culture, when in Rome. So many notes. I do want to have time for questions if you do have questions. What's funny about Singapore, how it's hot all year round, but if you go to the movies, if you're ever in Singapore, you go to the movies, bring a jacket, because that AC is cranking. You'll be watching a movie going, hoo, hoo, if you're not wearing a jacket. Odd, but true. Oh, here's one. I missed this one. Guilin Mountains. I talked about Guilin Mountains. Is there a picture after that one, Molly? It might be of just a picture of Kunming downtown or something. Yeah, that's Kunming downtown. They have this big walking area. It's really cool. When Michael Jackson passed away, this right here was a huge banner of Michael Jackson. That was interesting. Where was I? Oh, back to Guilin, those Guilin Mountains. There would be people that climb the top of the mountains, stand, and scream. You'd hear them in the morning before they go to work. That's what they do for psychological, letting out your frustrations. They say you should punch a pillow or something. They would climb a mountain and scream at the top of their lungs. And some of it would be screaming words, and some of it's just going, ah, it's like their own kind of therapy without having to pay for it. So that was interesting. All right, I think I'm just looking through my notes. Please bear with me. Now, we love the experience of not just Chinese culture, but all the different cultures we ran into. It's like the TCK girl I talked about during opening words. She went to Saudi Arabia, she's Korean, Los Angeles. It's just being in Kunming alone, you got to meet. It was just fantastic. We'll never forget it. We wouldn't do it again for that reason, but sometimes I wouldn't mind on my bucket list to go visit these cities one more time, just to delve in the culture once again. The food, I'll say it again, the food is just amazing. And my oldest daughter, there was this one dish in Guilin called Guilin Miefen, which is basically a noodle dish with a little bit of meat in it, and she misses that so much. I go to a Chinese restaurant and see if my waiter or waitress happened to be Chinese. I said, "有没有 Guilin Miefen?" and they would never say yes. No one in this country has Galen Miefin that I'm aware of. I've been to Chinatown and Chicago, New York. I should go to San Francisco. There's probably the country's biggest Chinatown. But anyway, things you miss when you come back to this country. Not sure how to land this plane. They say that about preachers. Preachers know how to take off with the plane, but they don't know how to land the plane. Sometimes I don't know how to sit down and shut up, as they say. But if you have any questions, I will do the and they want to admit, but it wasn't bad. I mean, they left foreigners alone. You could never go there on your passport or a missionary. You had to like have another business. You know what we did in Guilin? We sold what they call temporary urns. What's a temporary urn, you ask? Well, if you're going to spread your ashes, you can put it in this box and then spread your ashes over, you know, whatever. And so we sold temporary, or no, they manufactured it. We sold them to Americans. In Kunming, I had a English teaching visa for my passport. But the funny thing is, it's illegal to teach English in China without having a degree in English, which I did not. But the owner of the school was Christian, and he was falsifying documents to get missionaries to stay in China. So he falsified a document saying I had an English degree, which I did not. But that was interesting. Things you had to do illegal in order to do the right thing or whatever. You asked, that answered the question. Tom?
Mark, I'm wondering if you could briefly talk about how this experience affected your children. Like, not particular stories, but when they came back to the States, did they pursue Chinese, or were they, did it expand their horizons, or were they like, thank God I'm back in the States, I never want to do that again?
They felt pretty much the way we did, where there's no regrets. We enjoyed, it definitely changes your mindset with other cultures, opens your mind, and that's how they felt. I mean, they didn't want to stay in China because it is tough for a foreigner to stay in China. But when they came back, they just felt they came back with an open mind. I have one of my kids is still a Christian, and she's on a worship team. The other two are not. But they're all very, I gotta brag, they're very loving people, kind people. They're kind to other people. We've actually adopted another couple, adult couple, because their families were religious jerks and not treating them very well. And so we kind of adopted them, and they come to a Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff like that. My kids, I think, are great. I think China helped them, did not harm them at all. And I think they realize that. It's a good question. Aaron.
So you said that you worked with like smaller Christian groups. Did you also evangelize to non-Christians? If so, how did that?
We were advised not to because I said Chinese think all Americans are rich. If they have an American friend, a foreign friend, that's kind of a social status. They want to be more westernized. They want their kids to learn English. So it was advised for us not to do evangelism because they can, for false motives, become a Christian just to get closer to us, to say they have an American friend or whatever. So they advised us to disciple like these minority group Christians to evangelize. And so I was never liked doing it anyway. That was my excuse, you know. I said, and it's true what I said, but I never wanted to evangelize. I just wanted to know other cultures. But yeah. Seems that way. Really good questions.
Where are there air conditioners made?
China, I believe.
Depending on what year it's made.
Well, it's funny because they'll make the stuff for America better than what they make it for themselves because their economy is not as good. They have to make things cheaper for a cheaper price. So it'll be not as good, but the technology is the same. But yeah, air conditioners, most washers, dryers, you know, they're all made in China. A lot of cars. Every now and then I'd see a Ford or something. I'm like, what? You know, but most cars are manufactured there. Okay, sorry. No, not at all. It was 2003 to 2000. I forgot to mention this. It's kind of 2003 to 2012, which you said that's not 8 years, which is true because when we left Guilin, we came back to America. We found out Jamie had breast cancer. So we were in America for about 1.5 years. She had to go through chemo, radiation, all that. And then when we moved back, we took all our stuff from Guilin and moved to Kunming. And we lived there for 4 years. So Guilin. Sorry, the map out a little better. No, I'm never silly.
I grew up Southern Baptist. My parents were very, very strict Southern Baptist. And so we had, Sunday school and vacation Bible school. We had to go to all of that.
Sure.